If you have social proof, nobody's going to ask you anything. You can look 12. You have that credibility. Nobody's going to do it.
This is the Art of Lawyering Podcast, a show all about making more money, being a badass attorney, and loving your life. The Art of Lawyering is all about becoming the best you possible. Whether you are a law firm owner, an associate attorney, or somewhere in between, this podcast is built to help you get the most out of life.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Art of Lawyering Podcast. Really excited to be here, and I'm excited for the interview that we have today. Before I get to the interview, though, I want to remind you again about our weekly book giveaway. All right. Now, I know maybe you don't believe it's real, but it is real. I'm giving away a book every single week, and to get into the drawing for the book, all you have to do is a couple things. First, go to iTunes, find the podcast, just search for The Art of Lawyering. Subscribe, leave me a review, and then go to theartoflawyering.com/giveaway and put your email address in there, hit send. That will let me know that you've done that, and that will also help me figure out who's done it, so I have a list of people to pick from. I'd love for you to do that. That helps other people find this podcast, helps me know what you like and don't like too, because you can leave a review in iTunes, and I read all those, and I thank everyone who's left a review so far. I really appreciate it, and that's I guess that's kind of it for the announcements. I really appreciate it. It's episode 5. We're just getting started. I hope that there are going to be a lot of you from Law Firm Marketing Mastery coming over here. I'm also jointly publishing the last episode of Law Firm Marketing Mastery today, which will be sending people over here. So if you're getting to this now or in the future, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. This podcast is going to be awesome. This website is going to be awesome. It's really going to be dedicated to becoming better lawyers, becoming better business people, becoming better people generally. That's something that is a high priority for me, something I think about a lot and really work hard toward, and I want to share that stuff with you. I want to share my story with you. I want to share the stories of other successful lawyers with you, and I want to teach you how to crush it in business and in life. And I'm really excited for the opportunity to do that. I'm excited for the time that you give me, and I appreciate you. So enough of the announcements. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to the content. Let's get to the meat here. And today's guest is actually sort of a rehash of an old guest. And I decided for sure that I was going to post this interview tonight. Tonight I'm recording it right before this goes live tomorrow. So I have a weekly mastermind group that I host, and we've been talking a lot about Facebook and how to use Facebook to get business for your law firm. Some people think it's impossible. Some people don't think it's realistic. Some people just don't understand anything about how Facebook works and how you can use Facebook to get clients. And I happen to have an interview that I did with the person that you're going to hear pretty soon, and I must have interviewed him probably a year ago, and even a year ago, Facebook wasn't as big from a business generation standpoint as it is now. The ability to advertise and to reach people has really grown on Facebook over a very short amount of time, and the way that people are using Facebook has really changed from a business perspective. And our guest today had a lot of insight even back then and was doing some really cool stuff. And I was lucky enough to talk to him and kind of dig in a little bit and really find out what he did to use Facebook successfully. And what's really cool about this interview here is that this is actually the full interview. So if you go back and listen to the interview at Law Firm Marketing Mastery, I cut it off at the halfway point because I saved the second half as a bonus for members. And what I decided to do is just sort of pull it back and open up the full interview for everyone. And the meat was really in the second part. That's where we kind of dove in. And you may hear me reference that in the interview, that we're going to cut it off here and save the second half or something like that. But I'm really excited for you to get this information. This guy, to give you a little bit more about him, I'm sure I introduced him in the interview. He owns an immigration law firm in San Diego. I think he started his firm 4, 5, 6 years ago, probably. And his big claim to fame, that what people know him for, is this Facebook stuff. And he actually had this Facebook post go viral that isn't even related to the law, but he ended up with over 100,000 likes on his Facebook page. So he's become really well known for that. He's sort of used that to open up a bunch of other doors, and he's also used that to get a bunch of business because he has taken the time to learn how Facebook works and also create a system that generates consistent leads for him from Facebook. So it's a really cool interview, and I'm happy to announce and welcome Jacob Sapochnick to the show. So without further ado, actually, one more thing. I'm not going to probably say this at the end, but if you don't want to miss anything of the show, if you want to get some other sort of inside tips and inside strategies and information and things like that, you can join my email list. Just go to theartoflawyering.com. A pop-up will pop up, and your information there. You'll also be able to get, most likely, depends on when you listen to this, I put together a free report, how to make an extra $10,000 in 30 days. It's a networking system that I've put together that I'm going to give to you for free. So just go to theartoflawyering.com. The pop-up will come up, put your name, email address in, and you will be able to get access to that free report. So that is the last thing. So now, really, without further ado, let's go to the interview. See ya.
Good afternoon, Jacob.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you can make it. And before we really dive into anything, I was Facebook stalking you a little bit, and I noticed that on your Enchanting Lawyer page, you have a picture with Pat Flynn, right?
Right.
What happened? Tell me the story about that. Because I'm a big, I love business and I love marketing. And so I follow a lot of those guys too. And I just was curious about that picture. So what's the story behind that?
So, as you know, he's also, I'm in San Diego, and he's also local here. So
That's right.
We had a recent conference in March, the social media marketing world. And he was there, and we connected before online. We never actually met in person. So it was a good opportunity just to kind of reach out, say hi, and we know some of the same people like Cliff Ravenscraft and John Lee Duma. John and Pat are here, but Cliff comes to the conferences. So it was a good way to connect. And he's a really interesting guy, as you mentioned. He firstly is very humble, and he managed to actually reach a lot of success by showing people how he actually does it. And yeah, he's definitely an inspiration to a lot of people online who trying to do what he's doing, marketing,
right,
blogging, and podcasting.
Right. So and I gotta ask this next question, but how did you I guess create a relationship with him and like Cliff Ravenscraft and those guys, and this for me is kind of a networking question, right? Because I'm always interested in how people reach out and meet people. What do you do for those kind of things?
So, for example, if you look at the I use the same approach to my podcast. If you look at the podcast, we look at the guests that we had. For just this week, we had Lee Steinberg, who is the leading sport agent, and he's also the real Jerry Maguire. He's a huge celebrity over there. One of the things that I do is we try to connect with them through people that know them, and I try always to see like who do I know and what relationship I have with existing people, and we always try to give value. So I knew some people. In Lee Steinberg's case, I was involved in a program that he sponsored years back, and I reached out to some of these people that were involved in it and showed them what I'm doing right now, and they made a connection. with people like Cliff and Pat and John, it's key to be part of their, I took some of their courses, I comment online on some of the things that they do, and over time, they remember you. And so when you actually meet with them in person, it makes it a much easier connection to continue it. And it's just kind of building the network. Always sharing, you share links, you share articles, and sometimes they won't respond, but when they do, that at least they remember you. And I think it's a good way to do it, building a network.
Right. Perfect. I agree 100%. And let's just get this out of the way real quick too. You have a podcast, which I am a subscriber of, actually.
Thank you.
And it's called the Enchanting Lawyer Podcast. Is that right?
Right.
It's on iTunes. You can go to Stitcher?
Yeah, it's both on iTunes and Stitcher. You can find it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can go to what? enchantinglawyer.com?
So that, you can search for the iTunes in the iTunes store podcasts, or you just go to enchantinglawyer.com, and we have a podcast section there, so you can listen to it actually directly from the website. But most people like to listen to it in the car or they run or jog. Just download the shows to your iPod.
Yep.
So it's hard to keep the consistency always, but as you know, you have a podcast too. It's great to get the feedback from the people who listen to it, and kind of gives you motivation to keep doing it.
It is, definitely. We're gonna get into kind of that push to continue to create content and get out there in a little bit. But before, all right. So enough with the Pat Flynn stuff. I want to go kind of back to the beginning of your journey as a law firm owner, right? Has it always been your dream to own a law firm?
Well, I started my firm in 2004. It's actually our 10-year anniversary in late June. It's going to be
nice
this year.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So I think before I started the firm, I was working for a couple of years for another firm, bigger firm, and I'm really happy that I did that, because that firm was there's a lot of things that happened there that were not right. I didn't like the way they were dealing with the clients. I didn't like the way they were reaching out, doing the marketing. But I felt that I could always do it. I felt that I could do it better. But if I didn't learn it, or didn't see how things are done in a different firm, I would never maybe have the inspiration to set up my own firm. But I always wanted to do things my way. And so when I was able to do it, and I started it just with myself in a small office, I figured that I have a dream as far as how I want to see it run, how I want to see clients come to me, and the kind of service that I wanted to provide to these people. So, back in 2004, Facebook wasn't as dominant as today, but blogging was just kind of starting to take off, and I started my first blog in 2005, which was really the foundation for my online system.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way. I worked at a couple of places, and I always thought, I could do this so much better if I was in charge. Like the experience for the clients could be so much better. The work could be so much better. Things could run so much smoother. And kind of once that seed got planted in my mind, there was no getting around it. I sounds like you kind of had the same experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think once you start doing it and you have a vision and a plan, it's very difficult to go back. I mean, especially after you do it for 6 months, there's no way you can go back to work for a firm, because you already feel the opportunities and the possibilities out there. It's just impossible to go back to work somewhere else. But if you do happen to go back to work for a firm, I think it's a very miserable experience, because you're doing it because you have no other choice.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. And the freedom that you get, it's a lot of hard work when you open your firm, but there's even though you're working hard and you may be working more hours maybe than you even would at a law firm, it's still, you're working for yourself, and you're building every hour that you put in, you're going to get a return on that investment, 10, 100 times over. And that you don't really ever get to experience that in a normal job.
Right.
So I love that feeling. It's really hard to explain, I think, to people that aren't in it, but you're right. Once you get in it, I think if you've done it for 6 months, it's really hard to go back.
Right.
I agree with that. Okay. So let's see. I want to talk. So, I listened to some of your other interviews out there, and you mentioned this earlier, but you were working for a bigger immigration law firm before you opened your firm, right?
Right.
Was that and to even back up a little bit farther, you went to law school overseas.
Correct.
Right?
So you can hear from my accent that I'm not a local guy. I'm actually Israeli. So I came.
Okay.
I went to law school in England, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to kind of experience education overseas. Just kind of broaden my mind. I served in the Israeli Air Force for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, and I wanted to kind of get away from Israel just to kind of clear my mind. And I happened to when I was traveling in Europe, I met a couple of guys who were studying over there. It was the mid '90s back then, and I felt that I could live there. It was an interesting place, and the legal system there was very traditional. England is kind of the core. We have the same common law like in the U.S.
Right.
And so I spent about three years in England, and then as the .com was rising, I wanted to get into IP law, and so that's why I moved to California, where most of the companies were there, and I wanted to get into that area of law. And I did my LLM in San Diego it was about late 99, which brought me into to the U.S.
And then so this firm, were you working for them while you were still pursuing your LLM?
Right. So the firm that I was working at, I started working there as an intern actually when I was in law school, and they were it was a multi-practice firm. So they had an immigration division, they had a estate planning, and they had a business, general business. And so that's why I kind of got into immigration, and I realized that there could be an area where I have an interest because the diversity of the clients, and it was a federal practice where you can do it in all 50 states,
right,
which kind of makes it much more interesting. And so yeah, that was the beginning. I started as an intern, and they helped me get my visa to stay in the U.S. and I've been with them almost I believe almost 3 years.
Okay. And were you? I think did you start out working for them for free for no money?
Yeah, absolutely. I was at the beginning I was an intern.
Right.
And bear in mind that back then the legal market wasn't as bad as it is now.
Right.
We're talking about 99 where some attorneys just out of law school making more than 150,000 in many cities in the U.S. That was very common. It was a prosperity period.
Right.
Startups are rising. They need legal services, and so getting a job wasn't that hard. So working for free for me, I just wanted to get in the door so I can get myself before a partner who's going to say, you know what, we're going to hire this guy at some point. And I felt that doing an internship was probably the best way to do it. And even today, I think an internship is the best way to get in the door.
Right. I just think that's such a, because there are a lot of new lawyers that listen to this podcast. There are a lot of law school students that listen to this podcast. And I think it's important to kind of stress that sometimes it's okay to put a little work in for free to either get the experience that you want, or like you said, to do two things at once, to get your foot in the door too, and kind of show people what you can do. And I think that's important, especially in today's market, right, where it's ultra competitive, and you may not have an opportunity to go and do something else. You may have to actually go put some work in and show people what you can do before they'll give you anything.
Right. And in today's market, many attorneys are actually doing this for free, not just law students. You actually have attorneys who are willing to work for free just to be able to get in the door and be able to prove themselves because the market is so hard.
Right.
Just tough.
Just a question of how bad you want it, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's jump. I want to jump a little bit forward. So you leave this firm, you open your doors. Tell me the story about how you got your very first client with your firm.
Right. So, like I said, back then, the biggest problem that we have as attorneys, especially new attorneys who are starting out, is expenses, because you can run out of money very quickly if you're not planning it smart. And for me, I knew that marketing is important because how people are going to know about my services. So Yellow Pages was out of the question. It was just too expensive. And even today, it's very expensive. So I started doing a lot of networking. I was just doing a lot of these events. I was showing up with my business cards. It was $40 to get in, and you meet a lot of people. I meet in an immigration area. I was really going to the international chambers. I was going to a lot of these country-specific chambers. I was going to tech companies, mixers where those employers are looking to hire foreigners. And I was doing a lot of that legwork in the beginning. But of course...
Right. I have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
So when you do these networking, when you go to these networking events, did you have a plan of action? How did you approach these events? Would you go to them by yourself? What?
So I'll tell you. So my system has changed and evolved over the years. And so in the beginning, what happened is that I didn't realize it, but I was coming in there basically hungry for business, which was a mistake because I wasn't efficient. I was there basically looking to close referral sources, to close cases, and nobody likes that. People want to meet people because they feel they can bring them value, and so it wasn't effective at all. And so what I was doing is I was going in there. I didn't spend time listening to the people I was talking to. I just wanted to see who could be a potential referral source or a potential client, and I could see that. And so, and over the years, what I've done is when I was going to networking events, I was going with a pure intention to, first of all, get myself known in the crowd. Doesn't matter what I'm going to get there, just get myself known, provide value, just be kind of nice and kind and informative. Now, once you do that and start kind of moving around the crowd, but not giving them the presumption that I'm there just for a purpose. And as you do that more, you become more efficient at that, and you get much better leads. But the problem with networking events is that you can't do it all the time because your time is valuable, and you cannot just rely on that to get business. So I realized that I have to find a better way, and of course the web was the next step. I set up my first blog in 2005, and I focused on getting that content on the blog early enough, not realizing what's going to happen with that because I really had no other choice. That's the only thing I could do.
Right. So I know I kind of pulled you on a tangent, but do you recall the very, very first client that you ever had? Well, tell me about it.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
So, the very first client that I had was actually a client that I met at a function. It wasn't a networking event. It was actually a fundraiser, and I was sitting there, and it was a table, 12 people, and the person was sitting next to me, and he was a recruiter, and I told him I just opened my firm, and he said, I need an immigration attorney. We just found this guy from Canada, and we need to get him over here on a visa. I'm going to call you on Monday. And he did. He called me on Monday, and we processed 2 visas for his people. So that was my first client.
Awesome.
And I'll never forget that.
Yep, I'll never forget mine either, man. It's a great feeling, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody wants you, so that's awesome. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about your blog. Okay.
Right.
Because I went and I did a little digging. I went and looked back. The Visa Lawyer blog is the blog that I'm talking about. And is it visalawyerblog.com?
Correct.
All right. In case people want to go and check it out.
Sure.
But I went back into the archives because I wanted to see what your content creation, kind of your amount of content creation was like. And it looks like you've been posting. I didn't go all the way up to today, but starting in 2007. It looked like you were doing probably 2 or 3 articles a week.
Right.
Does that sound right?
Correct.
Does that sound right?
Correct.
All right. So tell me a little bit about that, just in general. Like what? I guess here's my first question. How do you find the content to do 2 or 3 times a week?
I'll tell you. So basically, this blog is kind of the latest version, late 2006 when we relaunched Visa Lawyer blog. Before that, we had another blog that was another mistake that I made, that I published my blog not on my own domain. So it was on one of those. I think it was a Blogger or
like a blogspot.com blog, right?
And that was the one that I released in 2005. I had to close it, unfortunately, because I just we couldn't move everything to my own domain. It was hurting SEO, so we made a decision to completely scrape it. But again, if you're gonna do a blog, always use your own domain. And the other thing, never use a blog coming out of your own website. You can see a lot of attorneys right now. They have let's say John Law Firm /blog. And they have a blog running from their firm website. That's the biggest mistake ever because the blog must have its own SEO value, a separate domain completely. And people don't realize that, but it is very true today. So what I was doing in the beginning, because I realized that the blog is important, because we had results from the first year and a half before we launched this one in 2006, late 2006. We get a lot of reporters and news media finding our content. And so if you look at our website in the media section, you can see how many media hits I have since I opened my firm. We've been on ESPN, on NBC News, Fox, KPBS, NPR.
And I was going to ask you about that. They found you mostly from like maybe Googling a question and your blog pops up?
Absolutely. That's how it was in the beginning. And later on, when Twitter came out, I was using Twitter to work with a lot of these reporters, be kind of their source, and we got even more exposure as a result. But the blogging is really the key to get media, because if you're a young attorney and you don't have any if somebody's going to ask you, and I was getting that question, because I look young even today, and I used to look young before, because I was young. But even today, I get the question, and I'm 40 years old right now. But people are like, well, how old are you? And how many years have you been doing that? And nobody's asking me that anymore. And that's because of a lot of the media validation, social proof. We can talk about that for hours. But if you have social proof, nobody's going to ask you anything. You can look 12. You have that credibility. Nobody's going to do it. And that's where the media was such an important tool. Because if you're a young attorney trying to break into the masses, how can you compete with somebody who's been doing this for 40 years, especially in an area like criminal law or family law, divorces, or those are personal injury. Those are very, very highly competitive areas, and experience matters. And so the media can definitely level the playing field here. And so that's what I was focusing on. I realized that reporters, they like the blog, and I was doing more of it. And what I was doing is I was spending a day on a weekend to create the content for the whole week. And I would just schedule it. So on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would have my 3 posts every single week. Because consistency is the key to blogging.
And did you write those? I'm sure at the beginning you probably wrote them all on your own.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was spending weekends and I was killing myself to do that. But after the first year and a half, what I was doing is me and we'll talk about it later, because I hired my first associate after my second year in practice. I already had my first associate, because even though I couldn't afford that person, I did it because I was focusing on my marketing. And then I had, I was working with the associate to create a content. So we were creating some topics. We had I was doing the shell. They were editing it. And but I was always involved in the writing, because you want to make sure that your input is always there. Never a good idea to outsource the writing completely, because you want to keep the voice of the firm always within. Right.
I agree. Yeah, because you outsource your content, you're kind of outsource your reputation if you're not careful.
Exactly.
Sometimes there've been I've seen some horror stories.
Right. You can be involved and have people work with you, but never completely get rid of it.
Yeah. You always want to make sure you look at it before it goes out in some way, just so you make sure it's not either wrong or just badly written. There's all kinds of things that can go on.
Sure.
Okay. All right. And so I guess the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to this blog, and it's because it's something that I hear a lot, is how did you overcome, those time periods when you were like, man, I don't want to write another blog post today. I'm tired of doing this. How did you kind of overcome those hurdles?
So in my case, like I said, I was doing the blog post at one shot every weekend. I wasn't doing it every day, so that one, because that's like this is my time to write these things, and it's kind of like a chore. Yep. So it's a good way to say, I'm just doing it, and I'm gonna go out and go surfing or go run on the beach or whatever. If you do it during the week, it's very dangerous, because you may get caught up in work and you're not gonna do it. So that's why it's key to do it. Like, do it one day, like let's say on a weekend or before the weekend if you don't want to work on a weekend, and just kill those 3 posts. They don't have to be long. 500 words is enough. To create value for the post.
Right.
So that shouldn't be a problem.
Yep. You just got to push through sometimes.
Right. Exactly.
Or set yourself up for success, like you did, where maybe you say, look, I'm going to take 3 hours or 4 hours. I'm going to write these blog posts, and then I'm going to reward myself with, a surfing session or
Yeah, exactly.
whatever it is you're into.
Correct. Correct.
But the key is you got to get it out, and consistency, right? For you has been a huge factor.
Correct.
Right. Awesome. Okay. I want to talk about, I'm always interested in kind of how you learn the business side, how people learn the business side of owning and running a law firm. So for you, was it just something that was it internal? I mean, I guess I don't know what your education was like before you went to law school, but has it been books, coaching? How did you figure out kind of the business side, the marketing, the leadership, the management side of owning a law firm? How did you learn about that?
Well, I think that in my case, I always had a passion for business. So I always like to do different things, which are kind of entrepreneurial in nature. Even when I was in school, I had all these ideas about starting some little projects, and so I had that kind of in me. But of course, to get perfected, I always take some courses which are not legal connected. So I could do something about leadership or management, and there are different courses out there. For example, we have. I was following Chris Brogan. He has a lot of interesting things that he does.
Definitely.
And even some of the basic stuff that people like Brandon Bouchard were doing, just for the state of mind of it. But I think as far as the business side, I was always trying to test. And there's many failures that you do when you start a business. So I think the best way is actually to try it. If it doesn't work, you try something different. Because even if you follow somebody else's course or lead, what works for them may not work for you. So you definitely want to take something. I mean, I always take something from any of these ideas, and then I try to implement it in my own system, which is going to work for us.
Right. Awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to dive kind of into the Facebook stuff here in a minute. And I got to tell everybody that's listening that the second half of this interview is going to be just reserved for members of Law Firm Confidential, my membership site. That's kind of something special for them. We're going to talk a little bit about Facebook before we get into the special side of it. But before we do that, I wanted to talk real briefly again about the Enchanting Lawyer website that you have, because I know why kind of I started everything that's involved or evolved into Law Firm Marketing Mastery. But how'd you kind of get into talking about the business of a law firm? What got you started there?
So over the years, especially in the last 2-3 years, as we did well on social, not just Facebook, but the different things we've done with YouTube, and I'm getting a lot of inquiries from attorneys all over the world, actually, and they're trying to always asking me, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? And there was not too many resources about some of the things that we do, so I figured maybe I can start a blog that will talk about some of the ideas that I have and the things that I do that can be different, and have some other attorneys that can find value in that. And so that was kind of the idea for Enchanting Lawyer. The whole purpose of this blog is to, in addition to social media, which is a tool to get your information out there, our premise is that, most attorneys, a lot of attorneys are not, they're not pleasant. They're not helpful to their clients. They're just trying to get on those clients so they can pay them. And we say, well, why not be kind and nice and enchanting? And this is a way to differentiate yourself from the crowd. And by doing that, you actually get 10x more results because clients actually will trust you more and they want to do business with you. So that was kind of the premise behind the Enchanting Lawyer blog, and then kind of the community that we're trying to create here.
Right. And you have a weekly newsletter, right, too, that you send out?
Yeah, so what we do is we have every Monday we post a blog article that talks about whether it's social media or leadership, or like on Monday we had one about Mother's Day where I wrote about my mom and some of the things that I learned from her that I can apply in leadership. And on Wednesdays we release the blog post about the podcast.
Okay.
And so we have twice a week we have and then it comes out in a feed to all the members who subscribe to our blog.
Okay. Cool. So, and again, I would encourage everyone to go look at that. as you've heard from Jacob, from me, the more resources that you can kind of put under your belt, the more information that you can take in, the more that you can learn, and the better your firm will be. So
Right.
I would encourage you to go check out his site and sign up for his feed. He's got some great stuff over there. That interview with Lee Steinberg was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Even I actually didn't know that he was the guy behind Jerry Maguire, but to hear him tell the story about them following him around,
Yeah.
and then he got sent, or they sent they sent Cuba Gooding Jr. with him to a game or
Right.
to the Super Bowl or something, and he's supposed to act like
Exactly.
he was gonna, like he did in the movie,
Right.
which I thought was pretty cool.
And then the Cameron, the director, he was following him for a long time just to get a feeling about the character.
Right.
So, but just the just spending time with this person even before I recorded the show is remarkable, because he's a very interesting guy, and he went through a lot. But you definitely have a lot of things to learn from somebody like that. So I'm trying to get some more people like that to the show. But I think that one of the things that we're doing right now, we have a lot of attorneys we're working with on kind of on coaching sessions just to teach them more about social and strategy, which is something that we're going to be developing more in the next this year, as well as a course that we'll be releasing as well. So that'll be also available on our website for you to learn about.
Okay, cool, awesome. All right. Let's talk real quick about Facebook. I want to give all the listeners a little taste of your Facebook strategy before we kind of get into the behind the scenes. But what I'm curious to know about, because I think a lot of people that are listening here are beginners when it comes to social media. So I'm curious about the process of you going from about 0 to about 2,500 fans with your law firm page. What can you just tell me about that process of doing that?
Now remember that what we've done back then, which is probably late 2009, beginning 2010, mid 2010, it's very different than what's happening today, because Facebook is changing the algorithm all the time. So a lot of the tools that have been working before are not efficient anymore today, which is another problem with Facebook, because it's always changing. So what I've been doing in the beginning is basically we did a lot of marketing off Facebook to get people to Facebook, especially getting the first 1,000 fans. So we had we have a mailing list of about 6,000 people on our newsletter for the law firm. So we had a strong campaign to get a lot of these people on Facebook. We had Facebook address everywhere, business cards on our door, on our car bumpers, everywhere. Clients coming to the office, we encourage them to sign up, getting a discount on their fees. There was a lot of effort in the beginning. And then when ads started to be more effective on Facebook, we started using more ads to target more specific people. And as we get more fans, we started to engage with a more efficient content. But I think the key to starting with Facebook in the beginning is really to get the fans that are that know you. Because if the fans that know you are on the page, like your subscribers to your newsletter, your clients, they'll engage on the page. That was the key to our success in the beginning. People were actually commenting and sharing information because they knew us. Even if you had 800 fans at the beginning, they all knew who we are. So they were commenting, they were sharing, and that actually helped us when we started doing the advertising to get more engagement and to get to the first 2,500. A lot of the firms that I see on Facebook, they have less than 500 fans, but the pages are dead. There's no activity, there's no imagination, there's nothing, and so they get frustrated, and so it's just that's kind of a vicious circle, because that's not working for me. So what's the point?
Right. So
do you guys have a Facebook page for your firm?
Yep, we do. Emerald City Law Group. I think we're up to like 12 or 1,300 fans.
Right.
And honestly, just recently, I've got, so you probably don't know this, but so originally my firm was called CMS Law Firm.
Okay.
And I took on a business partner, and we launched Emerald City Law Group January 1 of this year.
Okay.
So we're at 1,200 through 5 months or so. Yeah, and that's, we do some ads and stuff like that too, and trying to be a little aggressive about trying to get people there, just like you did too. Because, it takes work, right?
Absolutely.
People aren't just going to show up. There's a lot of competition for people's time and people's
Correct.
eyeballs right now. So if you want to be seen, you gotta put yourself out there and do that.
Absolutely.
So
Facebook is a process. It's a process,
right,
and it's a constant. It's a popularity contest.
right,
And I mean, I spoke to an attorney the other day, and he was literally telling me that he's frustrated and he's going to give up because he feels that it's kind of like people, you're there, you're an object, and people are basically rating you for if they like you, if they don't like you, if they want to stay on your page, if they want to unlike you. And every time that happens, he gets personal. He feels bad that he had like 100 people unlike his page on a week. But I tell him, listen, this is a process. Don't look at it this way. Look at it as you're in a public eye in a way, and people can trash your name. We have a lot of people do bad comments there, and so what? That's just how the world is. You're out there.
right. Yep, I just did actually I think my podcast 2 weeks ago was on how you deal with haters,
Right.
right? How you deal with those people
Yeah.
and how to really, in a way, rationalize it that what you really aren't out there in the world. You're not really going to be reaching the success that you want unless you have some people out there like that, because they just exist, and not everyone is going to be. Because what sparked that podcast was somebody went into our Facebook page and started leaving all these comments, and they weren't even a client. We'd never dealt with them before. We had no idea. I had no idea who the person was.
Sure.
They just were kind of being mean-spirited,
Right.
And like you said, that's just something that you have to. It goes with the territory, when you put yourself out there, and when people start finding you, you're gonna have those experiences sometimes, and you can't take it personally. You just gotta,
Right.
have a plan to deal with it, but know that it's not a reflection on who you are as a person.
Right.
You can't get disappointed or discouraged by that kind of stuff. So what about tell me about your content creation strategy a little bit. And I don't know, but I'm sure now you have people helping you out. But
Sure.
at the beginning, when you had less resources, what was your kind of plan of action for creating and then dispersing your content on via Facebook?
So of course, we have a team right now of people who are working on the page in our social media outlets who are internal people that I basically trained and created our culture. But in
Right.
the beginning, what I would have done is that I had a goal of dominating Facebook for lawyers, and not just in the U.S. I wanted to dominate in the world, which we've done. By the way, we have the largest Facebook page in the world for any law firm that I know. And
By far, probably.
and we just had an article yesterday by a Canadian one of the legal blogs in Canada, in Quebec, and they featured our page, and they kind of basically went through the whole how did they do it and the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I've decided to do it is because I realized that Facebook was kind of like the Wild West. There's nobody there for attorneys. They don't want to. And I said, why aren't they there? Why are they all on Google or Yahoo, and they're not on Facebook? There has to be a reason, because we have back then it was like 750 million people on Facebook. They're not stupid. They're on Facebook. Why aren't attorneys engaging and building businesses on Facebook?
Right.
And I wanted to understand why. So I went to a few courses about Facebook from big like Amy Porterfield and some of the big guys. And I was there in the courses, and I actually went into some live events. There were no attorneys there. And I spoke to Maury Smith, which was one of the some of my mentors in the early days, and she told me, listen, I think the main reason why there are no attorneys is because they just don't see the value, and they don't understand it, and they don't want to understand it, and it was clear to me that if I understand it, then I'll be the first one to break into that black hole, and I'll be able to make my mark. And that's what I try to do. So I studied the system, and I tested it, and I spent many nights myself trying to do it. I had to do it myself because nobody else could do it for me.
Right.
And so that's what happened. In the beginning, I did it myself. I tested it out and I tweaked it, and once I found the right formula, then I completely ran forward with it.
What are some ways that you find content for Facebook right now? Do you are like for me, we do the way that I do it is I have a bunch of Google alerts set up for specific keywords, so every day
Sure.
I will get, hundreds potentially of articles emailed to me that I can kind of
Sure.
cherry pick the ones that are cool and put them up. Do you do that
So
on a daily basis? Or are you working on a kind of a couple days
tell you.
out? Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Tell me
So
about
what we do is if you go on our Facebook page, we have a specific app that was customized for us by a company called News Fanscast or something like that. And what they do is they customize news aggregation from the web, and everything feeds into this app. So a lot of the news about my area, immigration, comes to the app, including my own blog. And that's a good source for us to capture all the stories that are related to our area. That's one great way to do it. It's very, very methodical. Now there are many apps that are specifically designed for content creation. So it's kind of like the Google Alerts, but it's a more more in-depth, where you can get alerts into your email by scouting Facebook. So one of them is called Sway, SWAY, and it's a content creation tool for Facebook, where you can sign up and we'll send you stories that are very specific to what you do, and you can use those stories to repurpose them or whatever. But Sway is a huge game changer in the way they create content. And so we do that. We also very active on image websites like Instagram. We have an Instagram feed for us as well. So we use some images from there as part of our content strategy, where we're going to get ideas to create our own images. Either we buy them licensed, or we create our own images using designers that will. But we get those ideas from Instagram, from Pinterest, and then we put them on our page. And I give an example. We had an image, and there's a news article about it, a story article about this. Where if you Google attorney beats Coca-Cola on Facebook, where we had an image of a slide, the biggest slide in the world, and I just put are you gonna go down that slide? Yes or no? Just one line.
Right.
And then within a week, we had more than 700,000 people talking about our page, who sharing that image. And I have no idea why it went viral, but during that week, we had more engagement than Coca-Cola, the company. They have 80 million fans. They only had 600,000 people talking about their page. We had 780,000 people, which was unbelievable. So what it means is that without paying a single dime, my page was seen by almost 3 million people, and we got tons of inquiries because suddenly 3 million people see my page, this lawyer page, and some of them, they want immigration services. And how can I reach 3 million people? Even if I pay $100,000, I'm not going to be able to do that. Do you see what I'm saying?
So, I see it right now. So I
you
see it
find
right
it
now.
also?
Yeah. So it's just so basically it's just a picture of a slide, and it says, "Would you go on this? Yes or no?" Right.
Exactly.
And I can see it's a screenshot from the article, but it shows that there are 466,000 likes of this picture, and there are 39,500 shares, which is ridiculous.
And that was just the middle of the week. I think the peak of that thing was almost 1 million. But that was just
crazy.
And I use that example to tell people the power of Facebook, because it doesn't matter how much money you're going to pay Google to get reach on your law firm's page. There's no way you're going to be able to get to many people, that many people. And imagine 3 million people can see your content in your own state, for example. That's huge, because that creates an interest in your firm, and inquiries, and people that just want to know about you. This is valuable marketing. That's what Facebook can do for you.
Exactly, and it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of creativity too to come up with this kind of stuff. Exactly. I'm trying to get I do a lot of my Facebook stuff on my own. I'm trying to get my assistant to help me, and it's a bit of a process, to kind of get her to start thinking. Right. It's a different,
but remember,
a different approach.
Remember that you need to get at least 5,000 fans to be able to be effective. Because if you have less than 5,000 fans, as much as you do content, it's not going to be visible. So you need to build the initial base to be able to get to the next level, which is going to be 10,000. So the first 5,000, you really have to reach out to the immediate community, using the newsletter, using the, all kind of creative stuff, doing contests, and engaging the lower base. Then you move to the next level, which is a more broader base, because that's where the referrals are going to start coming in.
Right. And okay, and I want to talk to you about that too. So I want to talk to you kind of about your the funnel from Facebook to your office. Okay, like I guess first, do you have any kind of a specific funnel set up, or are most people
Sure.
just engage with you on Facebook so they know about you? So if they need your help, they just call you and maybe just tell you that they saw you on Facebook or something like that. How's
I'll
that?
tell you,
Yeah.
some of this information I share right now, I'm going to have to go out and send people to kill you because I can't. It's too much valuable.
Well, hey, look, this is the behind the scenes part anyway at the show, so it's limited.
I'll
but
tell you.
I appreciate it.
I'll tell you.
Right.
The funnels, they change, and they change depending. So, for example, let's say in the beginning of the year, in my practice, we are focusing on the visa called H1, which is a common visa that has to be filed by April 1st. So I know that between January and April, I want to get as many leads for that visa as possible. So what I'll do is I'll start with a strategy of getting content around the visa. So stories about people who are working in the U.S., people who want to come here, nothing to do with the sales process. Then we'll set up a landing page. We use a lot of tabs. If you go on our page, we have a lot of interesting tabs. I have a tab that you can leave me a voicemail on my Facebook page.
Okay, cool.
We have tabs that are capturing news. We have tabs that are specifically when we do a book giveaway or a download. I have a tab for that. I use TabSite. It's one of the best tabs platforms. And so I'll do a campaign on, for example, ads. And I'll send people to my tab to download an H-1B guide, or how can you get a visa in 30 days. And those people that download this thing, they don't hire us right away. But what they do is they come into our newsletter or whatever we do, and they keep getting our feeds about different things that we do, success stories. We target them with our ads specifically for those people who downloaded our guides. I can do that on Facebook. I can target you, just you, for a whole day.
Yep.
And so what happens is that after 30 days, 90% of these people are going to become clients. And because what happens is that once they download the guide, we know they have an interest to get a visa. And so they keep getting our content for 30 days, and they feel validated that we are the lawyers for them. There's
sorry to cut you off, but to get the guide, do they have to enter their email address or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, it's like an opt-in for the guide.
Exactly, from the tab.
That's
they'll
right. Perfect.
Get their email, and then we'll get their email address, and we'll target their email. We don't send them a newsletter because they never opted in. We have another campaign that's specifically for newsletter. But for these people, because I know they spend time on Facebook, we remarket them on Facebook and on Google for 30 days. All they see is my ads, my pages, and then they hire us right away. And so we had a very, very good engagement rate for March, get all these clients on. So and that's how we do it. So, but now because our page is so popular, we get a lot of people that are engaging with us on our private messages. So they'll send, how do we set up a consultation, or we want to be able to talk to an attorney today. And those people are hot leads because I know they've been following my page for a long time because we track, we know when they became fans. So most people will engage in a communication of like giving us a comment or saying, I like your this post within 14 days. And then people who actually become clients, it takes them about 2 to 3 weeks of spending time on the page to do something like, can I call your office, or how much do you charge for a consultation, or when can we start working with you guys?
Right.
Right.
That's awesome. Yep. That's great.
Now, one thing I have to tell you is this.
Yeah.
A lot of if you spend time on our page, I never do stuff like here's a link to our contact page, you call us today, and I rarely share any legal information about articles. It's mostly very, very general stuff about news, inspiration, some client testimonials that are stories. Like we had a story yesterday where a client got her visa approved and her fiance proposed to her.
I saw that.
And so that was really good because we had a lot of interesting messages came out of this, saying, what a great story, and so we don't do any like hire us or I used to in the beginning, and it was good for SEO, but now Facebook does not like that anymore. They don't like the direct sales. They want to see more value. So we don't we try to give some more value, but people can indirectly understand that we are attorneys, so if they want to hire us, they'll come to us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Facebook is a lot more about information, about truly being social, sharing cool things with people, and interacting with people. You're right. I mean, I try to do the same thing. Rarely do we have calls to action on Facebook, unless we're giving something away, unless we're doing something creative for a Seahawks game or something crazy like that.
Another cool tool that I do it less now, but we're going to start doing it again, is the Facebook chats. So what we do is sometimes we used to do a chat where I'll answer questions about general stuff. It's never case specific. It's very general.
Right.
But the nice thing about the chat is that on the thread of the chat, so we'll put an image saying tomorrow at 10 o'clock we're going to be answering questions on this thread. So people can post questions on the same thread, and we have 24 hours to answer all these questions. The nice thing about this is that all these people that post, whenever they get an answer or they post, is going to go on their own pages.
Right.
So if 100 people on this page commenting and sharing, multiplied by 100, this particular thread is going to go on all their pages, and all their friends are going to see it. So chat on Facebook is huge.
Yeah, tons of engagement. Tons of engagement.
Yeah, very good.
Okay,
so
all right, cool.
Getting more likes.
Right. Yeah. All right, so we're about at an hour, so I don't want to. I really appreciate all of your time and all of the information that you've been given. I have a couple of final questions, and then I'll get you out of here. All right.
Sure.
So I'm just curious, what's next for the law offices of Jacob J. Sapochnick? What's next for you guys on the horizon?
So I think what's next for us, and what should be next for a lot of law firms, is mobile. Mobile is changing the way attorneys are going to be doing business. A lot of attorneys are ignoring it as they usually do. But the reason why, what I mean by mobile is everything is shifting to mobile. People are searching for people on their phones or on their tablets. So we're changing our websites, and our everything is responsive, so people can see it. And we built our first 2 apps. So if you look at our front page, our homepage of the firm, on the right side, you'll see our two apps. So we have one app on the iTunes store. It's a citizenship app. It's called Citizenship Pal, where you can apply for your citizenship on the app. You can do the form. It's going to be emailed to you, and I have all the 100 questions there. And the other one is an interactive app where it teaches you the process of getting a green card through marriage. The nice thing about the apps is that now we are, as you know, with the podcast, we are now reaching and tapping into the iTunes market, which is 350 million users that are not necessarily shopping on Google.
Right.
And so apps is definitely going to be the future, and we plan to do a few more of them and do more stuff on mobile. That's definitely the future for us, and it should be for any law firm.
Right. And it's another one. It's just like Facebook, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of the wild, wild west. You don't have a lot of people participating because it's new and it's scary.
It's expensive.
So
it's expensive to create apps, and so that's why attorneys are not doing it. But at the same time, I do feel that if you invest the money in at least 1 or 2 apps, it is very crucial, because you're going to be different. Like in your market, if you do an app for how to say no to police and DUI or whatever, you'll be one of the few who has that app in your area.
Definitely. There's tons of value in that.
Yeah.
All right. The last question I have for you is, what is the one question that I did not ask you that I should have asked?
Well, I think the main question, the question you should have asked is how to control or plan the growth of the firm. Because really, when you start a law firm, a solo practice, you don't know what's going to happen. And the biggest question is, like, what do you want? Do you want to be a solo forever, or do you want to be a firm? And you have to make the decision early in the process. Because if you're not going to do it early, you're going to be hurting yourself in the long term. So in my case, I knew I wanted to have a small firm, and that's how I positioned myself to grow. I hired my first associate after the first year, because I didn't want to be doing the work myself. I wanted to focus on business and marketing and growing the business. Some people enjoy being solos, which is fine. They can be very successful solos. But I think that's really the decision, like, what do you want to do, and how did you make the decision? And it should be done early enough in the process.
That's awesome. All right. Just to wrap up, is there any way that people can contact you, or is there if they have questions, or I know you mentioned you do some coaching and consulting and things like that,
best thing
how
is,
can I get in touch with you?
It's very simple. It's just jacob@enchantinglawyer.com. It's my email address, and I answer all my emails myself. And they can find me on enchantinglawyer.com. Best way to find me is and through this email. And I'm on Twitter at visalawyerblog.com. At visalawyerblog.
Okay, man. So that's it. I really appreciate your time, and
it was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Lawyering podcast. For more great action-packed advice and information, visit theartoflawyering.com.